Yes. Okay. Hello, everyone. And I'll stay in front of the screen just so the speakers can also see me. Sorry. So hi, everyone, and thank you for coming today. You are the bravest because this day is both Valentine's Day, as we all know. So our expectations were that there are a bit less lovers in our society. It appears now. And then it's also reading week, so some of our international students mostly are on vacation. So thank you all for coming. We're excited to announce our event on memes at war, because as you know, we are the Ukrainian Society and Ukraine is at war. For almost a year, there is a full-scale invasion by Russia, but the war started we keep on saying 8 years ago, but it will be 9 years now. And it has brought a lot of destruction in the different dimensions on the Ukrainian people. So the Ukrainian people stay resilient and they resist, and they live through this war, reinventing themselves and finding a way to oppose the aggression. And one of these ways is the informational war and the war on the cultural front. And it appears, we will hear more about it from the speakers, that memes are one of those tools used to fight the aggression, at least mentally. On that note, I will give the word to our speakers who will tell you about their experience in researching memes, Ukrainian memes in particular, and about their experience of creating those memes and archiving those memes and lots of different other things. So I will give the word to Anton Liagusha first, who is a professor at Kyiv School of Economics. Anton.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to me be here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I hope you can hear me. It's a pleasure to me share with you some thoughts about memes. And first of all, I should say that memes are more complicated and more difficult for analysis and for thinking about it. On the one hand, like for part of consumers communications. On the other hand, like for for cultural product of art. And the third, someone just put on chat that it is one of the weapons. Of course, it's true. On the one hand, memes are absolutely weaponized during this war or with this war. On the other hand, memes just, doing fixation of reality or playing role like being a mirror, maybe anthropological mirror. And I will try describe my thoughts on it. I hope you can see this presentation. And let's start. Communication with memes over the war. You can see on the right hand, very funny and lovely meme about love, about maybe related to Valentine's Day. Love is. What is love? Watching the Russian warship going to hell with the sunset. Of course, it's too funny for Ukrainians. Of course, this meme refers to very important part of Western culture, gum culture. Love is like a special sort of gum. But not only, and at least on the 8th day, God created memes. Urban Dictionary says it means like 7 days is story about God, and we have another additional special day a week for memes. It says that memes plays very important role in our everyday life. of course, first of all, I have to say, I will say about internet memes, about, online memes, not about like linguistical memes, like, speechless memes, like just visuals, like different parts of cultures become a meme. You can see, why don't my neighbors like me? They are just Russophobes. If you don't agree with Russian philosophy, with Russian ideas, with Russia world, Ruski Mir, you immediately being blamed just Russophobe. It's very simple Nazistic propaganda. And this such meme shows us that, like very masculinity Russia fighting against, gender inequality, yeah, against weaknesses, very, something difficult, something not to strike women. Ukraine on the one hand, Baltic states on the other hand, Finland, and you can put in other countries, except of China maybe. And in 2020 was first Biennale on memes in Australia. And very important, from the inaugural International Biennale for memes, we can write, memes move elections, memes move revolutions, memes move consciousness, memes move laughter out to our dark, cavernous guts. They serve as a coping mechanism during the first global pandemic in our lifetimes. It's about COVID, of course. They subvert discourse faster than any other medium. They create society. It's very important because memes are about discourse and switching discourses. That's why, on the one hand, memes are part of, information warfare. On the other hand, if it is discourse, memes are created or emerge or establishing different type of cultural elements of understanding of reality, or more, memes are describing this reality using their own language. I mean language from semiotic science, language like visual elements, language like words, language like some images, different images. At least they created society. That's why, of course, Ukrainians, not only Ukrainians, Europeans, Americans, immediately reacted on this war using different forms of memes. Very simple understanding of a meme, the very simple definition, give us Dawkins in his book, a self-replicating and evolving unit of culture, like one element of culture, like unit of culture. That's why memes can explain society, can create society, can institutionalize society too. And because it is part of, you can see on the right hand, very Ukrainian meme. You can see 3 persons, 2 of them are from Chechen army and Ramzan Kadyrov. And on the left side from Ramzan Kadyrov is a very famous rector of Ukrainian, one of the national Ukrainian culture interest universities. He is a cultural person, he's an artist, he's a, 10 hands person, like all time present himself on TikTok. like Kadyrov, as you know, all time seize, capture, and doing a lot of war operation on Ukraine using just only TikTok. And Ground says faculty of TikTok. It's described, it describes very special Ukrainian culture on the one hand, even Ukrainian political and society, environment, like, I just forgot this person, rector, Poplavsky, like Poplavsky, and on the other hand, presentation of war on media, on TikTok by Kadyrov. Of course, memes are so funny. Memes are very useful. We're just laughing using memes, and we can share it. Memes very easy for proliferation or dissemination. We can change something in context or in content inside meme. But on the other hand, because meme is very primitive and a very special unit of culture, it is very difficult for understanding, for deep understanding what is meme at all. And of course, we can use a lot of theoretical approaches trying to describe memes, like phenomenology and philosophy at all, trying to describe from ontological position what is meme. On the other hand, visual anthropology uses in terms of mass communication and visual communication can help us describe what meme is. Mass communication theory, especially like very primitive for Laswell's formula, that really works like what is a message? Who is the author of the message? Whom this message, maybe send it, about content of this message, and so on, senses, and something else. It's about, media economy. It's about online existential of memes at all. Discourse analysis can help us describe maybe these elements or keywords, how memes show some special, maybe cultural environment. To my mind, it's more about identification, because memes are about imagine societies or imagine groups of peoples too. Neo-Marxism, it's mostly about economy, social economy, understanding of what memes are and for what reason they are using all time. Narrative analysis, later I will very briefly describe it, and different type of social theories. The meme moves so quickly and unpredictably as to establish a statelessness, a lack of fixity that might be able to confront our simultaneous desire for visibility and awareness of the violence it brings. And of course, this meme, you can see, describes a very, unlogical and describes Russian propaganda at all. Because Russian propaganda says all times that special war operation goes on the right way, it's okay with that, nothing concern, and so on. And very old, elder than today Putin, and elder, of course, and today Minister of Defense of Russia, been asked about this special, I'm sorry for using this term, this special war operation. Of course, it's brutal and provoked Russian war against Ukraine. If we try and understand memes like a virus that very sporadic many immediately can be shared, disseminating, and at the same time can be consumed so much, in this storm, memes very easily adapt to their surroundings in order to survive, just like organism. That's why memes can, can change themselves, depends on even social media, like on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, and so on. On the right, you can see meme full of different cultural, historical, even generational contexts and discourses at all. That relationship between young people, that gender problems arose in this meme, about war, of course, about European and about Western supporting of Ukraine and Ukrainians, the girl you like, her ex, her father, her brother, her crush, you. The girl you like is Ukraine. It's absolutely true. As you know, Russia can not exist without Ukraine. On the one hand, girl, seems like very, very weak, not to stride and so on. But this girl has a lot of support, like her ex, very, very old man, yeah, her father, and at least her crush, with very perfect weapon, a lot of very useful weapon. And at least you, like Russia, been bombed and damaged at all. In one meme, we can, we can see a lot of levels of propaganda, of society, of fixation of reality, and so on, so on, so on, so on. Okay, one of my lovely memes, how to catch Russian soldiers. It is story after first period of war, as you know, when Russia, it's about lootering. When Russian soldiers just stole a lot of wash machines, not only, a lot of things. And it is story about existing of memes at all. At the same time, simultaneously, meme is a cultural trigger or unit of culture, a sign, maybe even an ensemble of signs from semiotical position, a symbol we can understand, we can read, we can refer to, and it symbols at the same time that potentially refers to other symbols, ideas, words, keywords, some catching images, and so on, so on. Has an index, like a little text we can read with our own syntaxes, a narrative structure, narrativity potential. It is a simulacrum at the same time from media position, from Baudrillard's theory, and a discourse at the same time. What does meme do with us, especially during the war? Provocate. Memes all time are doing provocation, telling a story. It depends on angle of view, of course, but memes all time has a lot of narrative potential, identification, societies, group of people, preparations, so on, so on, so on, so on, so on. Even can identify your own, beliefs, your own bias, and something else. Representation of reality, of course, using mechanism of interpretation of this reality, informing us about something, entertainment, primitivizing this reality, teaching us, influencing on us, becomes a weapon in information warfare and being a part of NAFO, as you know. About narrative potential of meme, it is story about history or her story, as usual. You can see on the right, we can describe a huge part of 20th century history, European history, just only for describing or for exploring this meme. It's about Nazism, like a dictatorship and totalitarian regime. It's about Soviet, it's about their doing sex. And a result we have now, like a mix, a mix of this new type of authoritarian regime in Russia, like combine element of Nazism with element of course USSR. And when we see on meme, what is on our mind can be, what is this story about? What is the structure of this story? What is the plot of this story? Who are the heroes and anti-heroes? It is very interesting because from this position, we can reread and we can rewrite memes, values and ideologies showed, in memes. What is intention of meme? And what is the time of representation? Because as you know, memes all time live their own lives very, very short, and it depends mostly about context, like a lot of memes about leopards now, about Scholz, about Poland, about give Ukrainian tanks. And several weeks ago, it was time of erosion, this type of memes, but not today. Today, it's not funny. See, consume, and proliferate or disseminate memes on this issue, on tanks, because we have a result. That's why I think that memes potentially can be, can be useful for doing some businesses at all too. I hope I have used my 20 minutes and could describe you some of my thoughts. Thank you very much for your attention.
Are you muted, I think?
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, I was saying thank you, Anton, for your insightful presentation. Before the questions, we straight move to Julia's presentation.
Okay, I can straight up tell that mine is not going to be as conceptual, but because this was great and this was very insightful. So let me share my screen too. I forgot how to do this. I haven't studied on Zoom for a while. Can I, while I'm doing that, can I see hands who is in the audience as in Ukrainian versus like not Ukrainian? Can you raise hands if you're Ukrainian? Okay, so most people, I see. But hello, my name is Julia Tymoshenko. I am Ukrainian. I'm based in Kyiv, but I'm there usually, but right now I'm located in Warsaw for a few weeks. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for organizing this event, because I used to be a student in an international university as well, and I also used to run a Ukrainian club. And I know how important it is to see people show up and to see people actually support these kind of things. So I'm really, really grateful. And especially if there are non-Ukrainians in the audience, I want to thank them even more, because I feel like it's also super important when people from other countries and other contexts come and support. So huge thanks. I just remember myself in the same kind of situation. Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about the meme front because I happen to work for two incredible organizations that use memes in one way or another. One of them is SaintJavelin, which is a social enterprise that has turned iconic meme of Mary with a javelin. I think you can kind of see it here. I should have put a bigger picture. Into a social enterprise in a way of helping Ukraine and a way of fundraising. This image has circle of a Mary holding a javelin, which is a defensive anti-tank missile, which has been monumental in the course of Ukrainian resistance against Russian invasion. This image has been popularized even before the full-scale invasion and has been going on around the internet between people who were supporting Ukraine and saw this as this symbol of Ukraine is defending itself. And Ukraine is this Mother Mary, almost like holy image. There's a lot of layers and symbols there. We can talk about, obviously, just the symbolism of and the role of religious icons during the wars, because we received a lot of backlash of oh, how can you portray a religious symbol with a javelin? That's not really good. But then if you track back history, you can actually find a lot of religious art that where the saints or any kind of holy figures are holding weapons. It's just that back then the kind of modern weapons as a javelin didn't exist, but they had swords or arrows or other kind of things. So there's whole actually beautiful video on SaintJavelin and Washington Post if you want to explore more and find out about the symbolism of this symbol, particular of this image, that explores also the history of iconography in wars. But I'm not here to talk specifically about that. And I also work for Ukrainer as a part-time editor-in-chief of their English version. And this is not something that I directly do, but Ukrainer works a lot on archiving the memes. And this is kind of the two things that I'm going to be explaining today about our work. So I think it was really great that Anton's presentation was very conceptual and situated the role of memes and how they could be applied and used throughout different mediums, what kind of narratives they can and ideologies they can push and how they can explain it. I'm going to talk more about how to do it almost strategically, as we do in SaintJavelin and sometimes in Ukrainer, and what's the goal of that. Just let me, okay. I kind of created this general question, what is the meme front and how important it is during the war? Just to show my recent favorite memes on Ukraine Russia war is something similar that Anton was showing, is just how this context of the countries that have been occupied by Russia in the past, whether it was Russian Empire or Soviet Union, they obviously have the same kind of sense and relationship with Russia historically, so they all kind of understand what's happening with Ukraine. That is not a unique case, and it's also the countries where we least hear this phrase of Putin's war, and things like this meme, whether it's like Russia saying, I'm not ashamed of my history, and all of these countries, the Baltics, Georgia, Ukraine, and others, saying exactly that's the problem. It's very simple way to translate that Russia has never actually reconciled for its past crimes and has never been brought to justice, and it has never had to pay reparations, which is a huge reason why it's like allowed, why it thinks it's allowed to do whatever it's doing right now in Ukraine. And I'm really glad that there is a very simple way of translating that in a simple image, in this kind of like almost like a pop culture, like a movie scene on images. The second one is the very funny one. I mean, I'm pretty sure you all know this like meme template, but it's like about Ukrainian mechanic looking at all different tanks that are delivering. And obviously this represents the larger political conversation about the delivery of heavy weapons to Ukraine. And there's been a lot of debates around the world, specifically whether it's gonna like influence the course of the war in a good way or a bad way. A lot of people are advocating against it, thinking that Western tanks will only prolong the war, but Ukrainians are very firm and they feel like we need those heavy weapons to actually liberate territories. So behind such a simple image, which is funny in a way, because obviously the question of like, oh, we have so many different types of things, how we're going to be working with them at the same time. It's just a small representation of a way more complex issue that is happening. And memes are incredibly important in its context, and I think that's why they're so powerful sometimes in translating some ideas and thoughts, and also gatekeeping them as well sometimes, because almost like in order to understand all of these Ukraine-Russia war related memes, you need to be first a little bit versed on the political situation and what's happening, but also you need to be kind of sometimes versed on specific pop culture phenomena and things. And I'm going to show later how we utilize that and how we tap into our audience just using the kind of context that we know that they're exposed to. And the third one is also refers to the tank issue. It's basically all of these countries saying that like, oh, we donated the most tanks, but then it's like Russia saying amateurs, because Russia actually, if you calculate, involuntarily donated the most tanks to Ukraine, because a lot of them were abandoned and recaptured by Ukrainians as they were especially liberating Kharkiv region. So this context is super important, because if you don't understand what they're talking about, like here it says like 545 tanks donated to Ukraine, you won't be really get it. You won't be able to get it. But if you've been following what's going on in Ukraine closely, which a lot of people abroad now do finally, because that kind of attention has not been shown to Ukraine since Russia invaded it for the first time in 2014. If you have been following, you'll be able to understand that. In the next slide, I try to define meme front. This is just my definition, so don't take it. This is not like coined term or anything. I know that meme warfare is defined on Wikipedia, but I specifically wanted to talk about the meme front because we refer to it a lot as we like talk about our work and how important it is, or not, because we just sometimes make memes. And I defined it as like online space where the people from two or more ideological / political sides interact using memes as the main tool to demonstrate their political stances or to convey a certain message. And obviously this definition can be debated or not, but we know about like NAFO. I know somebody commented that NAFO is great, which is kind of this decentralized, self-organized group of different people on Twitter specifically. And now they have a Discord channel that was started from just an idea of using the meme of a Shiba dog and to organize, to actually tackle Russian propaganda on Twitter. So people just started sort of like using this Shiba avatars, designing them, and then using a bunch of memes to actually almost like attack people who are spreading Russian propaganda on Twitter. And they're mostly consistent of foreigners, which is an incredible, I think, phenomenon that almost like needs to be studied from social perspective. And I studied sociology in college, so I'm super interested in seeing how these things happen online and how memes specifically influence culture. So to talk about specifically what we're doing with Ukrainer and then SaintJavelin, the presentation is very short, so I can't really like show you obviously videos and stuff, but Ukrainer basically doesn't create their its own memes, but it serves as almost like a video archiver of these creative pieces. And if you go on their YouTube channel, you'll be able to see like monthly or like bi-monthly meme collections, and they're in the video format, but it doesn't mean that they have to be in the video. It could be like tweet screenshots and other things, to like a yearly summarily, which is, I think, is a great way to actually trace the chronology and the mood of the society, specifically Ukrainian, because Ukrainer collects only memes mostly in Ukrainian and mostly made by Ukrainians. So you kind of can go back in time almost as you trace these videos to understand what was the mood like of the society, what kind of messages, what kind of humor they were focusing at that time. Because if it's really like subtle, and it represents something that probably you can't really track just going through like a traditional chronology of the war. And I think this is incredibly unique, and it, as I said, it needs to be studied in depth, because it's almost like a time capsule of online society and online discourse at that time. Obviously, it really gets influenced by what's happening on the front. Like, for example, here you see like Putin putting a candle over Crimean Bridge, which happened closely. Probably the meme was created on the day when the Crimean Bridge was blown off. And again, you really need to understand a lot of these contexts, but overall, if you understand the language, you can go and track and see which were like the popular narratives that were spread in the Ukrainian society, specifically online. So I think it's incredibly valuable, the work that they do. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm just like doing funny videos with meme collages. Like, yes, and probably it's not a new concept. Like, we've seen a lot of those like videos online before, where it's just like funny videos and like people watch them and laugh. But this serves a way deeper purpose than it seems. Because, as I said, it offers that chronology of public mood that is expressed often in very unique way, using humor. Going to SaintJavelin, I think SaintJavelin is a incredibly interesting case, because they're actually social enterprise and organization that has like a business side that donates profits to Ukraine to different initiatives, and helps also like has a fundraising side where they help to fundraise and use their strong audience to fundraise. And I think 80% of their audience is actually foreign, it's not Ukrainian. And how they've grown and been able to be so successful in terms of reaching lots of people around the world is through like combining like English speaking understanding, like humor, and like trends that are kind of like popular in like English speaking, almost like Western spaces online, and using Ukrainian humor to add to that. And oftentimes they translate Ukrainian memes or adapt them so the foreign audience can understand. And now a lot of other accounts, even like the Ministry of Defense, does that. But when they just started out, SaintJavelin was almost like one of the first people who were really focusing on the translating the Ukrainian humor to foreign audiences. And obviously, for me as a Ukrainian who has been in Ukraine for the most type of this war, who has met war in Kyiv, I think humor has been a huge coping tool. I even remember talking to my friends and families before the invasion and like laughing about like, oh, like I'm gonna go to lunch, but I'm gonna have like my emergency backpack. Or we were like laughing about how we gonna just like be running away from tanks. And it was genuinely funny for us. Obviously, it was a way to cover some way more deeper and like screwed up anxiety that we had, but it's almost like we had no choice, and humor allowed that relief. Because honestly, like considering all the events that are happening in Ukraine, like every day Russia bombs our cities, every day Russia is killing people on the front lines, like our soldiers are dying every day just so I can live and other Ukrainians can live. People are being tortured on occupied territories. If you focus on that and if you only read like traditional news, it's going to be very freaking depressing, and not a single person can probably just stay sane following that in all seriousness. So humor and getting information through humor actually allows us Ukrainians to cope and to just stay sane and keep it together during the hardest times. Here's a few ways we're translating or bringing Ukrainian humor and combining different contexts, because as I said, context is very important, and it's really important to understand who are the people that we're talking to. Our very strong channel, or used to be strong channel, was Twitter, and Twitter, I think, is a birthplace of a lot of memes. Incredible platform. Personally, I thought that it's going to die when Elon Musk bought it, but it hasn't yet. But definitely we see that engagement on our tweets is way lower. We don't know if it's because of any kind of engineering or it's just lower because of other changes, but it was undoubtedly very just anxious moment when Elon Musk bought it and came with a sink. But immediately we saw this like tweet that was saying that, oh, Elon Musk, in Ukrainian, it was saying Elon Musk with a sink coming to Twitter headquarters looks like a guy, like a Russian soldier stealing a toilet or a sink from Ukrainian household. Because it does sound ridiculous, but that has been the case in every single settlement or village where Russians came, that they've been stealing the most mundane household items that is almost like hard to believe that they can bring any value. So we just basically translated this meme and put it out, and a lot of people were able to actually understand the context and combine the two, and it went pretty viral. The second one was when Russians announced that they are leaving Kherson. And this was actually like one of our team members' idea, that it sounded like almost like Liz Truss leaving the Prime Minister post in UK. So we just like immediately very fast, not super high quality production of this meme, but we replaced the image of Liz Truss and her portrait with the image of Russian flag above the Kherson administration building, and obviously did the reference to the latest meme. So it's obviously spoke really well to our UK audience, because honestly, yeah, the whole kind of like idea had similar vibe. And the third one, I think the most popular meme that we've ever created, the most like viral, I think was the reason why it went as viral, I think, because it represented a moment and a feeling on social media, which is sometimes, especially like on Twitter, which is sometimes is very hard to do with like text format. It was a video that we took of UK football fans celebrating, I think, like a football victory and singing a song. I think it was like Matt Griggs is on fire, like some football player. And we just replaced it because it kind of actually sounded as Carriage Bridge, which is another name for Crimean Bridge. We replaced it, the subtitles for the video. We didn't change like any sound, but with subtitles, it kind of makes you think that you hear other words. And we made like the simplest edit of our ever, and we posted it online. But because so many people were celebrating the fact that Crimean Bridge, this physical but also metaphorical symbol of Ukraine's connection, Ukraine's forceful connection to Russia, because every time we had any historical bridges and ties, they were forced on us, that it's being destroyed now. And Crimean Bridge is like obviously like a last big physical symbol of that. And so many people were celebrating, and we saw like people from all kind of professions and places and countries reposting this, like different politicians, different, I don't know, defense ministers of different countries, news hosts. I think there was like a big person from CNN which is very shocking to us because we didn't expect this little little meme to be as viral, but I think it really spoke to that feeling that a lot of people were celebrating with us together with the Ukrainians. So I think representing the mood on social media with memes is also something that we do from time to time. Relevancy of memes, this is I was putting this presentation right now, and my colleague, our social media manager, she sent this, and I was like, I'm gonna put it in this presentation. Going back to obviously the biggest talker these days is tank transfers to Ukraine, and she came up with this cheesy Valentine's card idea. And those work very well because it's also context of the Valentine's Day, it's context politically, and just very generally shareable material. Memes don't always have to be just funny or represent a good feeling. They can be sometimes be actually way more deep and almost sad sometimes, as this one. You see somebody repurposed a format of Spotify Wrapped, and we know how usually social media responds when Spotify Wrapped is being unrolled on social media and everybody's sharing, and Ukrainians created this meme where they actually compared what they were listening for a year unwillingly, and it's air alarms, explosions, Iranian drones, gunshots, and so on. And it's a very powerful and quick way to translate very simple message in a format that is familiar to everyone else almost on social media, or at least to a huge chunk of social media. And I think that's also something that to keep in mind, that it's not always something that is particularly funny can be a meme. It can serve bigger purpose than just delivering humor, as we've seen and as we've heard from Anton as well. Are there rules in the meme warfare? And this is it's kind of the question that I wanted to leave for thought as well, but I wanted to introduce my own opinion too, because I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of people to kind of misuse humor and not complying with some sort of just general good heart of rules. Unfortunately, we see that sometimes people use memes that bring down other marginalized groups just because they want to bring down Russians. And this is something that personally in SaintJavelin, we try not to do, and we try to stay away. And this is against our values. So for example, when people who are definitely, because we know Ukraine is supported on very different political spectrums, people who are more conservative also support Ukraine, while people who are also very liberal support Ukraine. And sometimes those clash. And I think also in these very innocent almost ways of oh, just me making a funny meme, you can see how those sometimes clash. For example, when people just try to use anti-LGBTQ rhetoric to make fun of Russians and use kind of imagery to create memes, this is definitely not something that we want to ever push on our channels. And this is, we believe, that is not necessary to use other marginalized groups, for example, as women or LGBTQ or other indigenous communities, to be able to translate a certain message. And any kind of humor that brings down other people, specifically also not involved in the specific war, because obviously a lot of our memes bring down Russians and Russian soldiers. But when we're talking about other groups who are actually not directly involved, any kind of humor like that is kind of a cheap humor. And we believe that there's better way to communicate our messages in subtle way without crossing these lines. This is generally, I think, it. I've talked a lot. I don't know if that was very cohesive because I've prepared only this morning for this. So if anybody has any questions, or I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you so much, Julia. I think we're going to jump into questions straight away, and we did prepare as the committee a few. What makes, if anything, Ukrainian memes unique? I mean, different from other memes.
Okay, I don't know. I can start, I guess. I think specifically a way to use like I want to say dark humor, but not in a sense dark humor that probably you understand. Like dark humor, it's like when I was giving your examples that like, you know, we were making jokes about how we're gonna just like spend nights in basements when Russia attacks and etc. And we genuinely like found those things funny, and I think a lot of that almost like self-deprecating, I guess, like humor sometimes is a maybe like a trait of some of Ukrainian memes, but also I think just like, and I don't think it's like specifically about Ukrainian humor, but I think it's more like about Ukrainians being able to almost turn any kind of event news piece into a meme. I don't think I've ever seen that in other like countries or contexts, because I think memes have been very powerful tool politically in Ukraine for like now years. And also I think because given that we had to resist more to like Russian propaganda and Russian misinformation campaigns on social media for almost decades now. Obviously, US experienced some of that with Russian troll farms in Europe as well. But Ukraine has been sort of like the first, obviously, front to be attacked, even like on informational sphere. We kind of learned how to respond earlier and more. And we trained ourselves before the full-scale invasion. That's why I feel like Ukrainians were super successful to immediately respond with this meme warfare as the invasion started.
Would I try answer on it? Okay, to my mind, we can divide three types of memes. One type of Ukrainian memes, it's Ukrainian memes for foreigners. The second one, and Ukrainian memes created by professionals. And third is Ukrainian memes, you know, created by people very sporadically. But all of them, of course, you know, it's story about context of the war, because war usually is very, very attractive. Very attractive. And Ukrainian memes, you know, on the one hand, to my mind, it's very targeting and very, very accuracy. Very accuracy. Even memes created by folks, by people, timely like reaction. But on the other hand, you know, these memes, it's like, to my mind, special type of weapon. I mean, fighting just catching Julia mentioned it, catching different types of, you know, political supporters, like from far rights to far left, and from conservative to Republicans or libertarians, and so on, so on, so on. That's, I see that Ukrainian memes are unique in terms of context, discourses, political, you know, maybe political roots too, of course, and very targeting and accuracy. On the one hand, it's of course about the humor, but not only. And Julia mentioned it too, that memes not only about humor, but it's all time about touching and catching.
I just want to thank you very much for the presentation. Can you hear me? Cool. And I wanted to ask if somehow the fact that the president of the country had a career in humor, is it somehow affecting the fact that how memes are so powerful in politics?
Okay, Anton, can you please repeat repeat the question because it was a little interruption.
I think I heard it. I'll try to repeat. I think she was asking
I just
whether,
got only about president.
yeah, whether it influenced how Ukraine is doing like the memes, right? Or like, yeah, I think that was generally. I'll be very quick. I think like yes and no. I think the president is more like a product of Ukrainian society rather than a top-down influence on the Ukrainian society. So I think he represents like larger, obviously, culture and relationship with humor in the Ukrainian society, but I don't think he is specifically driving that in any way. Yet, that being said, I think he's incredibly successful in his speech delivery, speech writing, and using different forms of allusion and like metaphors and connection with each specific context and country that he talks to in a way that maybe previous Ukrainian presidents weren't really as productive. That's my personal opinion. Maybe Anton has different, I don't know.
Nothing else except that just president on memes, it's another one character, you know, on this huge plot. We have a lot of heroes, and President Zelenskyy on memes, for instance, is not so special hero because we have a lot of other characters. And in terms of using by president team memes, if potentially it can be productive, I think is a no, then nor yes.
Thank you. And thank you for an amazing presentation as well. I'm just wondering, because I don't really know the laws of the internet in Russia at the moment, and whether the use of the internet and social media is restricted. But are you aware whether these memes are accessible in Russia? And indeed, do you have any evidence that they are enjoyed there by the local population, whether they have an effect on that audience as well?
I might have to ask Anton to repeat and summarize the question because I
yes,
think because
I get at all. Sorry.
Thank you so much for your question. I think you have like a cool. No, what's your shirt? I cannot see from far, but it looks. I don't know. It looks. I thought it said something about Russia. Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry.
So in short, sorry if I put it a bit wrong, but I believe the question was, do you think or do you know if Ukrainian memes are seen in Russia? And if so, do you have any comments on the reaction?
Yeah, they are. And usually, you know, I try to do a lot of conversation on some very specific Russian chart and to talk with Russians, trying to find answers on a huge, you know, and a bunch of questions. And yes, Russian social media, mostly VKontakte, trying to rebuild Ukrainian memes and trying to switch their meanings. But to my mind, if they do this, it means like Ukrainian memes are working on it, you know, and really touch their consciousness. And shortly, yes, of course. And it's very productive.
Yeah, I think I don't have much to add. There's one question in the chat where somebody's asked that you've mentioned about professionals who create memes. Who are these professionals? I'm not sure who you're referring to or who you're referring to who mentioned that. I just want to say that like sometimes people think that like in SaintJavelin there's like a team of people sitting creating memes professionally. Well, it's not true. I think sometimes we just like come up with stuff like on a rolling basis, And sometimes people ask way more, I don't know, complicated like questions about it. They think that we do it very strategically, but it's not really. I feel like once you start making memes yourself, you kind of understand which are the templates, which are the popular contexts, how you can merge different contexts. And for example, when there's a big event happening, like liberation of Kherson city, like the burning of Crimean Bridge, we kind of all sit down and like, okay, like what kind of meme we can make. And somebody thinks about like a movie scene where like a character screams, the bridge is burning, the bridge is down. Somebody thinks of like a funny image that you can use, and it's just literally brainstorming of the most sometimes ridiculous ideas. When it comes to professional, in terms of like maybe Ukrainian government side, there are different government accounts on social media right now that use memes, which is sometimes ridiculous if you like compare that to government accounts in other countries. But yeah, our parliament account uses memes, our defense ministry uses memes. I haven't seen that from the president specifically. Maybe that's good. Everyone else is pretty keen on using memes when in their communications for different reasons.
If I can add very shortly, first, to my mind, people who are trained doing this can be professionals. You know, on the other hand, I guess maybe some people from security services doing on the boss side doing memes.
That's not me. I'm not from security services, just a fact. I mean, if that's true, that would be a huge like learning. I wouldn't be surprised, but like, yeah, I don't know if there's a way to prove that. I think there are way more powerful communities, obviously, like NAFO, who are producing memes and way more impactful. But I think like, yeah, sorry, just to add to that, I think if we do look at memes as an element of culture, which I think it's like fair to say that they are at this point, it's an element of online culture, and culture and any kind of like form of art, even like this form of cheap art, as you want to like call it, or simple art has always been utilized by governments and specific political groups to push their agenda and or fight in some sort of informational wars. There have been songs created for different cultural and political movements around the world. There have been paintings and etc. So I think, considering that, it's not that far-fetched to imagine that memes can also be artificially created to push certain ideas.
Absolutely, but nevertheless, by the way, you know, memes absolutely politically weaponized.
Thank you for your contributions. Do we have any more questions from the audience or in the online?
It's a big one.
If you maybe can come up to the laptop and ask your question, because that way we can hear you. Because I think laptop still catches sound from the room.
Mike, hello.
Hello.
Okay, so mine is quite a broad question, but I don't know if you've touched on this, but I'm a historian, and you know, cultural history of Ukraine is really fascinating because we have a long history of satire, and because of Ukrainian tumultuous history of, you know, oppression, repressions, genocide, etc. What comes out of it a lot of the time, you know, is art or satire or commentary. So how can we fit this, you know, moment of memes into this wider history of Ukrainian comedy and satire? And can we and should we? So yeah, this is a very broad question, but take whatever you know, whatever part you're interested in.
I will show you this perfect meme, my lovely meme at all, about this war. Of course, firstly, it wasn't a meme. It was created by artists, but of course, this picture, even it's not a picture at all, this meme became a meme, after being published on Facebook. And of course, it is full of story, of history. I'm a historian too. And to my mind, now it is a time, fit of facing real history, public history, media instrumentalization of history with some visual component or some visual elements of historian representation or historical representation. And of course, a lot of today's memes, roots of today memes, a lot of them from history, from early 20th century history, from USSR history, and something else. But I absolutely believe that it's time to create very popular Ukrainian public historian book, how teach history of Ukraine by memes, or using memes. No.
I think that would be incredible. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, to add as well, that I think like, yes, we can say that it definitely contributes to the larger history and the cultural sphere and the use of satire in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian society. But I think it's almost like impossible to fully understand the impact and calculate the impact now. We need time to pass. So that's why projects like, for example, Ukrainer and their chronology of memes and their like videos, like monthly or bi-monthly videos on memes are incredibly important, because then in the future we would be able to go back and trace back on approximately in what time and in what context those memes were released. And I think in that way we would be able to play and analyze other aspects, like what kind of narratives are being used in those memes, what kind of like mood messages are they translating, how maybe other social constructs and concepts are being used or shown or performed in those ways of humor. The reason I say performed, because I think TikTok is also a huge driver of humor and memes now, but they're more performative, they're more engaging than just obviously the image, and the video memes are also should not be underestimated, because they play a huge role. And even seeing like soldiers also coping through TikToks and doing like TikTok videos on the front lines, I know it's probably bizarre for someone who only knows about war from like war movies and documentaries, because obviously you don't watch a war movie on the World War II and you don't see soldiers doing TikTok dances. But it is the reality in Ukraine that a lot of them engage either in like explaining what are they experiencing, or they just use TikTok to have fun and cope. But I think that is also an incredible source that can show us like the mood of these people in the specific historic event.
Even I can add that there is a very important question about meme like historical source. I mean, for historians, how we can use it, how we can describe it, what instruments we can use, for understanding memes like historical source for doing some research. And it is a very complicated and very interesting question, because on the one hand, of course, any results of people, everyday life, culture results are historical sources, and memes, of course, on the one part, like elements of popular culture, on the other part, like just, even sources we can archive, but how we can describe and explore these sources, it is a question.
Yes, thank you again. And I think we will be closing here. Just to end, I wanted to ask a quick question, both of you. Perhaps you have some recommendations of sources where we could find more memes we're interested. I mean, our audience. And also, what is one key update in regards to consuming memes? So what we should all beware, one or if you have a few. So what should we remember when consuming memes?
I think that when consuming memes, we need to understand that it's a deliberate creation. It's a deliberate piece of like an output and of idea that was put out there for a reason. So it's very important to remember, right? So obviously it's not like a thing that came together by itself, and trying to probably ask a question like, what was the person trying to address, or what kind of idea they were trying to push out or to promote with this meme, image, video is very important to analyze, because even sometimes like I find some memes funny, but then I read more about the context when it's, for example, doesn't concern Ukraine, but it's more like memes from other countries or abroad, and I realized that like, oh, I really lack the context to really understand, and I don't understand what the person was trying to say here. So like the second one would be trying to understand the context in which that meme was created and from who, if you can obviously identify the author, because that's another challenge with memes. They're kind of authorless often. In terms of resources, I think I named my best two, and I'm going to promote those: Ukrainer and SaintJavelin. I think they're the best. But they're also obviously the Ukrainian Meme Force page on Twitter and others that you can find. There's also really powerful threads on Reddit, and I think Reddit is a great resource for finding memes. But they're sometimes very niche, and even though like I'm kind of aware what's happening in Ukraine, sometimes I don't even understand some of the Ukrainian related memes on Reddit. But those are great sources.
Very briefly, each meme has their own intention. It's very important to my mind. Keep in mind at all time. And the second one, Julia mentioned it is context. When, why, what media was used by sharing these memes, and what discourse, in what discourse memes are existing. Because it's about bias, it's about stereotypes, it's about ideas, it's about ideologies, it's about political, ideas, beliefs, and so on, so on, so on. Just please remember that each meme has their own intention.
Great, thank you. Sorry. I hope you can hear me. Well, my mic is turning on. Yes. So thank you, Julia and Anton, for talking to us today, for sharing your thoughts and your experience on working on memes or doing memes, making memes. I'm sure that the audience will take something useful from this. We will now switch to, the committee prepared a quick quiz, so feel free to stay for the quiz and take part if you want, but you are now free from this moment, so if you need to run, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting. It's a pleasure to see students showing up and students organizing this kind of events. So thank you so much for everybody who came, and especially those who like not particularly related to Ukraine, but want to learn more and want to support. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for invitation, for being here, for this possibility to share our thoughts, and of course, for any type of support in us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.